Hi guys, welcome to Behind the Lens with Yolanda Hill Photography. Today we have Stefany with Married in Palm Beach. She's going to give us a little info into a little bit of wedding planning and also how she got started in the wedding planning industry.
Hi everyone.
Yes, how's everyone doing? Hope everybody's doing great today.
Yay, good day.
So tell us a little bit about yourself and how you ended up as a wedding planner and where you actually started.
Sure. So I am Stefany Allongo. I am the founder of Married in Palm Beach. It is the only online wedding resource solely dedicated to weddings here in the Palm Beaches. But that's not how I started.
All right.
So we rewind the clock. I actually graduated during the Great Recession. So like every good kid, I came back home. So I had worked at the Tony Awards up in New York. I had worked at Disney in their marathon, half marathon events. And when I came back home, I was just working for my parents and they have a business here and it wasn't fulfilling. I was like, this is not what I should be doing.
So I kind of started my business around that same time because I was drowning and I'm like, I need to do something. So I actually went back to school and, like I had talked before, I actually started as a makeup artist, but that just did not go very well. And then I dabbled in photography, and then voila, here I am. So about the same time.
About the same time, yeah.
Okay, cool.
So I took the experience I got at Disney and at the Tony Awards, and I was like, I can plan events myself. I did these mega events. Smaller events will be totally my jam. So I started in weddings and events, and I would take like a marketing eye to it because I have a master's degree in marketing. So I would take that marketing lens and apply it to events.
Okay.
And so for 10 years, I did that. I was very happy. I was successful. However, when I gave birth to my first child, I was like, this is just not the right fit for my life anymore. I didn't want to be working every weekend,
Yeah,
to be totally honest.
Very hard. I mean, thankfully, mine was a little backwards because I had my kids earlier in my life. So when I started this business and I didn't start in weddings, so it took a while for me to get into weddings. By that time, my kids were grown, so it didn't really affect.
Yeah, it's totally different.
I couldn't imagine doing what I do with little ones
With like
at home.
a newborn.
Yeah, no.
I mean, I was giving
That's really
birth.
hard.
I was giving birth and I had a wedding that weekend.
Yeah, no, that's really hard.
So it was, I had couples texting me. They were super mad about it. It's fine. It's a whole thing. So during that time, I had always complained to my husband that there wasn't an online resource dedicated to Palm Beach County. So the Knot, Wedding Wire, all those larger publications clump Palm Beach County together with Fort Lauderdale, Miami,
Yes.
the Keys. But
it's
those
so
of us,
hard to even get a lead through there.
Yeah.
I mean, well, you do, but like you said, it's a clump.
it's a clump.
Of
And
9,000 photographers in like multiple areas.
And it's to the detriment of both the vendors and the couples because couples who are in Miami don't want to talk to someone from West Palm. And
No.
we don't want to go down there.
No.
Like, let's be real.
Yeah.
It's a long drive.
It is a little drive.
And so I had complained for years about this to my husband. He's like, just fix it. Just be done and fix it. So after Emiliana was born, I was like, it's time. It's time to fix this. Let's just build
Time
this.
for a new venture.
And so that's what we did in 2017.
Now, Married in Palm Beach, the name, which is an awesome name, by the way.
Thanks. It's SEO.
Yeah, smart. Was that your wedding planning name, or
No.
you just created this?
That was completely separate. So I had the Majestic Vision, which was my
Majestic
wedding,
Vision.
which
Okay.
was my wedding planning business.
Okay.
And then I wanted something completely different for this that encompassed literally every vendor type within our area. And so we're known as the Palm Beaches. Everyone who's here knows it's not just Palm Beach Island.
Right.
The Palm Beaches stands for Jupiter all the way to Boca.
Right.
So when people are Googling, and I did a lot of research on this, when you're Googling it, you say, okay, where am I getting married? You're not saying, show me wedding vendors in Wellington. You could, but you're not going to get the same results as you would just say like West Palm or Palm Beach.
I mean, when I Google something, I literally just put West Palm.
And all of us from here do that.
Yeah,
so that was kind of like the impetus of the name, so that when I was doing the SEO and those key terms, our stuff would pop up that way.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where that was born. So in 2017 we launched. I did the balancing act with my clients at the time, and Married in Palm Beach for about 2 years because I didn't want to take away those contracts. That's not fair to those couples, and they were amazing couples to me at the time. So in 2019, I had my last official wedding as a planner and did Married in Palm Beach full time.
Nice.
So,
So how do you get vendors on there? How did you actually start it? Did you just start reaching out to different vendors? Like, how did you get it going? I mean, I've been on your site. I've looked through it. Very nice, by the way.
Thanks.
So you guys make sure you check it out. And if you're looking, for any vendor, they're all there.
Yeah. So I took that 10 years of knowledge and experience and just knowing people in this industry. And so I built out these vendor lists, and it lists every single vendor in every single category that is local. So venues, photographers, videographers, hair and makeup, catering, cakes, photo booths, rentals, music, like everybody's there. But what we call the Marriott in Palm Beach family are our advertisers. So those were vendors who I personally interview every single one. So you can't just like pay me and be on the site.
That's a great.
Yeah, it's my name, it's my face on the site.
I agree. You don't want to just put anybody there that's not good to recommend.
Correct. So if you are an advertiser on the site, you've been in business at least 2 years. I love new vendors. They're awesome. I support their businesses. But a lot of times they pivot in that first 2 years. They realize, like you were doing hair and makeup, you pivoted to photography. Yeah. You may plan your
you're just
wedding.
learning the business. Things could not work out, and you don't want to give that to the clients.
Exactly. So you could have loved planning your own wedding. You want to be a wedding planner, and you get into it, and you're like, ooh, I actually like photography better or florals better. And you pivot a couple years in, and I don't want to necessarily be recommending them at that point.
That makes sense.
Once they're established, I do. And I have a lot of relationships and like mentorships with new vendors in town where I see them grow. And once they're at that point, I'm like, yes, now you can be a family member and it's going to be great. And so
I haven't told you, but I am going to be a family member. So.
Woo! Yay! So that's kind of how it works. So as you're a family member, you're 2 years in the business, you're here locally, or if you live in Fort Lauderdale, but you're willing to come here without a travel fee or Stewart or the Treasure Coast. That's kind of how that works. We have those conversations individually with those vendors. Mm-hmm. For venues specifically, it's only Palm Beach County. Mm-hmm. So the venue page is divided up by like North County, South County, West Palm Beach proper, and then the Western communities. So as couples are going in there, they do that. But the biggest difference between like what the couples see and our family members is that those who are not family members don't have live links. Because that's going to drive a couple crazy. Sorry.
It actually drove me crazy because I was like, why? I'm clicking on it. Why? But this one I can click and it goes. And I was really confused until you told me. And I was like, oh, well, that makes a lot of sense.
It's
and
super
what a
strategic.
Smart girl. Yeah.
But I do it because as a couple coming to the site, if you just happen upon the site through SEO, through social media, I want it to be helpful for you. I want you to be able to say like, I want an elephant at my Indian wedding. How do I do that? Oh, well, if you go down to rentals, you will see that we have, the different Bharat animals and how you can do that. And it's on the site for that reason. Are they advertisers? No. But they're there to make the couple's lives easier when they're searching for their vendors. So it's kind of like how the website works. And then we also do articles. So
yes. And then we're going to get into the other subject of not only does she have the website, she also coordinates these amazing bridal shows that we have one coming up, and I'm excited to be one of the vendors.
One of our vendors.
Yay. So make sure that you check us out, but I'm going to let her tell you a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So we haven't done a wedding show since before COVID. That was my very first wedding show in 2020, in January of 2020.
I didn't know this was your first one.
So after COVID, I, obviously I was like, oh, it was totally my fault, right? Like I did it in January of 2020. I was like, Kobe Bryant died that day. I was like, I am cursed. Like this is not going to happen.
No.
And so I was like really gun shy about it. And Aloft, who is one of our advertisers, approached me and said, hey, we really want to do a wedding show. I was like, okay, I could be talked into this.
Yeah.
So we had a long conversation about it, like what my vision was. And what it is it's an intimate wedding show. So lots of wedding shows have 50, 100 vendors, and it's super overwhelming for a couple to walk into that. Because
and for vendors,
where do you
I'm
start?
Looking around, I'm like, there's so many people.
Yeah,
like it's just like a lot.
It's just a lot. And so I try to make this a very intimate setting. So there's only 20 vendors total.
Nice.
And max of 3 vendors per category. So there's no more than 3 photographer video in that category. There's not any more than 3 planners. There's not more than 3 venues. So if you go there, you're not going to be overwhelmed with choices, which it was really important to me because, again, I get decision fatigue. I know couples do.
It's a lot. It's a lot to take in. I can see them getting overwhelmed. I mean, there's so many photographers talking at the same time, like this, that, and it's a lot.
It's a lot. Yeah. So we have those 20 vendors, and then we have what's called the Passport to Paradise. So it's this little passport that has everybody's information in it. And so each couple has to go talk to every vendor. Nice. So it really encourages the conversation and say like, hey, what can you do for me as a photographer? Let's have a connection. Let's have a conversation. And then if they don't connect with you,
smart too.
That's
sometimes
okay.
I'm shy to go up to people so I can see where, the couples might be like, oh, I don't know,
but they have to.
Let me just grab this paper and run away.
But they have to in order to go into getting a raffle prize. So they have to show me that they did their little passport, they got their little stamps. And then they can win amazing raffle prizes. Marriott Singer Island's giving us, I think it's a 2-night stay.
Nice.
And then we've got a couple of other really great prizes. Nice Booty is doing what is the word I'm looking for? A boudoir session. Okay, a luxury boudoir session. Nice. As one of our giveaways. So it's really a wonderful thing to do that. And everyone's going to get to be a part of that.
I still have to figure out what I'm doing, but I will come up with something. I promise.
So we have the Passport to Paradise, which is really great. And then there's actually going to be an after party the Aloft told me about.
Oh, what? I didn't know about that.
I know, right? He texted me the other day. He's like, hey, what if we do an after party? So like once we announce the raffle winners.
Now, is this with
not within the show, like completely
No, but
separate.
I mean like the is it only vendors or is it both?
It's for the both.
For both. So it's a mingle after with
correct. So Parisi Events is going to be
never heard of that.
So Parisi Events is going to be DJing in the lobby. So as guests leave and as the vendors are done cleaning up, you can go and like stop at the bar, grab a drink. You're gonna have live music. Nice. It's gonna be a fun little after party like after.
I'm excited.
The fact. Yeah.
And I'm gonna actually have Parisi. Is that how you say his?
Parisi.
At Parisi. Rob. I always mess that up. Sorry, but I'm gonna get him on the show as well. He's an awesome DJ. So he'll be here hopefully soon.
He's actually getting married this weekend.
Oh, is it this weekend? Oh my gosh! Congratulations.
And so he is gonna be like getting married and then coming straight to us.
Oh,
the wedding
poor guy.
show.
No, I'm kidding.
I was like, thanks, Rob.
We love Rob. So as far as wedding planning, we're gonna go back to that a little bit. What do you advise for somebody starting in the wedding planning? So you started your business. Let's say I wanted to be a wedding planner. Like, what are the do's and don'ts that you can tell somebody?
Do become a legit business. Like, get an LLC, talk to an accountant, talk to a lawyer, and get your ducks in a row.
Yeah.
Because as you get into the business portion of it and you get stuck in the day-to-day, you're going to forget about all that stuff. Mm-hmm. And you're going to forget, like, how that works. And then tax time's going to come around and you're like, oh my gosh, like, I set this up incorrectly. I did all these things wrong. And
and then it's overwhelming to
fix.
To fix because now you're already involved in so many things. And then you got to go backwards kind of thing and try to fix that.
Like set your QuickBooks up the right way.
Yes, QuickBooks.
I paid my accountant like an hourly rate. And I was like, okay, sit with me and show me how to do the QuickBooks the way you want me to do it. Yeah. So it makes the most sense for like the tax write-offs and all the things that you need to do as a business.
It makes life so much easier at the end of, the year when you
I used to do it in Excel and she yelled at me.
Excel?
She would yell at me.
I didn't even do that.
She yelled at me. She's like, what are you doing?
Yeah,
like,
how do you even do taxes in Excel? But good for you, I guess, if you
it was
figured
hand typing every single expense off of my credit card bill. It was insane. And she yelled at me. Don't do Excel.
Don't do Excel.
Invest in QuickBooks.
QuickBooks
invest in an awesome accountant that understands small businesses. So she or he can tell you and guide you in what to do. So do you have uniform expenses? Do you have to buy like a new dress or a new jumpsuit to work a wedding? That's a uniform for the vendor.
You got to look professional.
Awesome new shoes. Like your shoes wear out. Like
shoes are important. You're on your feet all day. And
15 hours.
Yeah, and it hurts at the end of the night because I did that
limping.
At the beginning, and I learned quickly that flip-flops were not the thing to do. No.
Wear like
sneakers,
like those cute like Ked sneakers with some insoles.
Just something that's comfortable.
Yeah, I used to have the Kate Spade Sparkle. I still have them. I still wear them at events. But they're Kate Spade Sparkle sneakers, and so that I would wear that under like my big long black dress, and I wore a dress that was cute. Floor length because then I could like bend over and do things.
Yeah, that's another thing. I
be showing everybody.
No judging on anybody, but I cannot wear certain clothing because I'm like bending over or something, and I'm just like, so yeah, I want to look really cute, but there's a limit to that. And I've seen some photographers wear like wedges to weddings doing photography, and I'm like, how do you do that?
Yeah.
And how does your feet not hurt? Like, I don't get it. So, but good for them, but I just can't.
It's whatever works for your style and who you are as a person. For me, I wear dresses all the time. So I had a long floor length cotton dress, which was important because when I would hand the brides and the bridesmaids their bouquets, I could use my cotton black dress to dab off all the water.
Oh, look at that.
So it wouldn't stain their dresses. I'm like, you can stain mine. It's black and it's cotton. Like, it's going to
doesn't matter. It's all good.
And so that was a strategic decision by myself to say like, okay, what type of clothing can I wear that's going to be the most useful, but still put me looking like I'm supposed to be a guest. I don't want people to not think I'm not a guest.
Right.
Because I'm all up in their business. So, but yeah, so back to the initial question of like, if you're first starting out, an accountant is really important. A lawyer is really important for drafting that base contract that explains like what you do, you know, things like COVID, things like hurricanes.
Yes, those are things that I learned.
Yeah,
I mean,
you learn the hard way.
Like,
you don't know
like
until
COVID
you don't
was
know.
like a whole teaching. Like my contract had to be changed because, I mean, I never experienced that.
We did, as Married in Palm Beach, at the time, we had a lawyer as one of our advertisers. And so she did a complimentary session just for family members. And she's like, okay, let's talk contracts and let's talk how to implement COVID into your contracts and things of that nature.
Yeah.
And so she did like an hour-long tutorial on like what to say and what to do and then offered again like her services for a discounted rate to any of our family members that wanted to fix their contracts if they saw that it wasn't an easy fix. So it's really important, like those types of things, like get those ducks in a row. It's not as important as social media when you start out. Like, yes, social media is super important. Your website is super important, but really making sure that foundation of the business is there before you start taking off into the world.
And speaking of taking off, after that, what did you do to make yourself stand out?
Website.
Yes.
Again,
Website.
marketing kid. I was a marketing kid. So the Majestic Vision, when I picked that name, was not as SEO friendly in retrospect. I could have picked something else because I started so long ago.
All right, do I need to change Yolanda Hill?
You're good. You're
okay. Yolanda Hill, Palm Beach.
Correct. You have to do like Palm Beach photography.
I actually do have something like that.
See,
I haven't used it, but I'm going to use it.
Yeah. So it's making sure that when you're building your website, at the end of the day, you don't own your social media. You don't. Instagram owns it. TikTok owns it. Facebook owns it. But you own your website. Yeah. You really do. So unless the entire internet goes down,
it's there.
Your website's going to be there and it's going to be working for
you.
And
that's mostly, at least I always go to somebody's website. Always. And I have seen vendors that I know they're starting and everything, but I've clicked on their Instagram or something and there's no website. And I'm just like, I don't get it. Like, have a website's so important. Like, yeah. I just redid mine and I love my website. And it's important. It shows who I am, you know, how I built it, all the little, you know, details that I put on there. It's for a reason.
Correct.
So that's very important.
And that's what Google and the search engines crawl. They don't crawl social media per se. They will, like, for your overall arching, you know, Yolanda Hill Instagram or Yolanda Hill Facebook. Or TikTok. I don't know if you're on TikTok.
I am.
Okay. I'm not.
Follow me there.
Sorry.
What? Stefany.
It's a funny story. So years ago.
TikTok is huge now.
I know. But years ago, before it was huge, we were sitting in our living room. At the time, we were in Wisconsin. And it was snowing outside. I remember sitting by the fireplace. And my husband's like, babe, there's this new social media platform. It's called TikTok. It's huge.
Was this around like COVID?
No, it was before COVID.
Oh, okay.
It was before COVID.
I came into the COVID time because I had nothing to do, so I sat on TikTok all day.
But it was like before COVID, and I remember he was like, "You should look into this. She should be a part of this." I was like, "Ugh, I don't want to do." I was like, "It sounds like the one thing that was like the 30-second video one from a long time ago."
Yeah,
it's like it sounds like that. Like I don't want to do that. And I was like, I write articles and play on my website all day. Like that's what I do at this point. I don't plan anymore necessarily. So there's nothing to film. There's nothing to do.
Yeah.
I really don't want to be dancing and like doing the whole thing.
Yeah, I don't do all that. I'm just not that cool.
Like there's just not enough behind the scenes for me that's interesting.
I do a lot of behind the scenes and people do like that, but
you have things to show.
I do have things to show.
I show me in my pajamas behind a computer. Like it's just not fun.
Yeah, that's probably not.
it's not the best content. So I chose at that point to not do it. And then it blew up.
Understandable.
And my husband's like, told you so.
But
every day.
But you can do like tips for wedding stuff and the, Married in Palm Beach vendor, introducing vendors.
I know.
Just giving you ideas, more things for you to do.
Just all the things. So that's kind of the funny thing. But social media, like Google and search engines don't necessarily crawl those for the individual posts. It just crawls it for those URLs. What it does crawl is your actual website. So every single page. So if in every single page you're using keywords that are specific to you. So South Florida wedding photographer, Palm Beach wedding photographer, family photographer, like whatever those keywords are.
This information is so good, guys, because I'll tell you why. Because when I started this, I had no idea. I built my first website by myself, which I think I did pretty good. As time went by, I just realized that it wasn't that good. And so I redid it, but it still wasn't that great. So now I did hire somebody that knows what they're doing. And I said, just take it. I pay him monthly and I don't have to worry about it. And it's fantastic.
And it's a great investment because it's true. Like, yes, couples a lot of times start on social media, but they move to the website. Yes. But I still get 70% of my traffic from search engines.
Yeah, I got one yesterday, an inquiry, and she was like, oh, I found you on Google. Because I always ask on my questionnaire, where did you find me? And she put Google. And I was like, okay, cool, it's working.
Yeah, it totally works once you have that SEO set in place. And then things like blogging, which keeps your website.
That I need to work a little bit.
So what it does is it tells Google that your website's still relevant and still live and you're still in business. So as you constantly update your website, it tells those search engines like, oh yeah, like
she's still there.
I'm still there. I should be doing things. So, so that's kind of all the things that I think are really important. It's a lot of things.
It's a lot of things. So let's move into what advice would you give brides and grooms on a tight budget?
Ooh, yeah. Okay.
Because, it's hard. Planning a wedding can be a little pricey. And if you're on a budget, it's hard.
So when you say tight budget is something different for every couple. Mm-hmm. So you can't just say, I'm on a tight budget. You got to say like what your budget is. Is it $20,000? Is it $50,000? Because that can be a tight budget to different people.
Agreed.
So, or is it $5,000? Like you really can do that. For me specifically, my bread and butter is obviously weddings that utilize professionals for their wedding. Mm-hmm. If you're on a super tight budget and you got a $5,000 budget, pick one professional vendor, like photo, video, whatever's
most important to you.
Like what's the most important thing to you, and make sure you spend the money on a professional.
I had that happen to me actually. I had a bride budget wedding, backyard.
And there's nothing wrong with
there's
those.
Nothing. And she did a great job. Yeah. And actually she did a fantastic job. It was beautiful.
Yeah.
But she's like, I spent the most on you.
Exactly.
Because I wanted you. And I was like, oh.
And that's what's really important is if you're gonna throw yourself a wedding and you're gonna do this and you have a small budget, then really pick what's important to you. As you get even like into the big numbers, it's still the same thing. Are you going to get like a mid-range photographer or a high-end photographer? Like you figure out like where those price points lie and what you're comfortable with and what you want to spend your money on. And so what I always tell my couples is, what are your top three? Because when they hired me as a planner,
you want to know what the top
I need to know what the top three are, because the other ones I'm going to say like, okay, let's go to, let's do Shutterfly. Let's like DIY your invitations. Like what is not as important to you? If your invitations and printed materials aren't important, then don't focus on that.
Yeah.
But if that's awesome, let's give, Carla Hagan a call and she'll calligraphy everything. It's going to be stunning and beautiful. But then you're going to pull back on catering. We're going to call like Park Avenue. They make amazing food at a really reasonable price. Let's do that for catering versus, something else. And so these are very specific people. And things. Because that's what's popping.
That's what we want.
But that's what we want to know. Like those are the types of things. Like you have to make those decisions based on your budgetary constraints. And what's important is killer food on the top of your list.
Yeah,
sure. Like call Laura Ashley. She does awesome food.
Yeah, she does.
You're not going to necessarily get Laura Ashley if you're on a Park Avenue budget.
Yeah.
Again, Park Avenue, I love you. I eat you all the time. You catered my brother's wedding. Like I can't, Yeah. But my brother's saying,
but they're just more affordable and it's fine.
Yeah,
there's different levels of stuff. Yeah.
So that's where I would say is like, what are your top three? and go from there. So,
and then as far as like vendors, for you as a wedding planner at the time, how did you pick the ones that you wanted to work with? Like, there's so many of us. There's so many of us. Like, how do you pick one?
so
Or did you have a certain amount? Like,
No,
I have 5
no.
top, or I have 5 this.
No,
or-
so I would talk to each couple individually and figure out, okay, are you a laid back chill bride? Okay, this is the photographer for you. Are you a beach bride? Okay, I have a florist for you. So like based on what their needs were and what their personality, because every
which is important.
specifically like photo, video planner,
You're with them all
officiant,
day.
those are like the top 4 vendors that you spend the most time with, right? Like at the end
You're
of the
stuck
day.
with me all day.
Yeah, and it's if your personalities don't mesh, that's gonna make for awkward photos and videos.
Very.
It's gonna make just for an awkward feeling day, and they're not gonna feel comfortable, and you're not gonna feel comfortable, and it shows. So when you're making those decisions, think of it like floral. I love my florists, I really do, and they're super chill and awesome, but they don't necessarily spend the day with the couple. It's more important like that I have a good relationship with the florist as a planner than the couple. So in terms of the florist, as long as I had a good relationship with them, we're good to go.
Yeah.
Because they're dropping and decorating and they're gone by the time the couple and the guests get there. So they're not necessarily
Involved.
the
with them too
personalities
much.
don't necessarily have to mesh as
Yeah.
well. It's
Even
more
with
of
me
their,
with florists, like I've worked with them, photograph, their beautiful arrangements. I never see them.
yeah.
Literally, maybe they come and drop off.
Yeah, because by the time you're there, it's all done.
It's all done, or they come to the hotel and drop off something. I don't have time to chit chat. It's like, thanks, okay, bye.
Yeah.
Like, I never really interact with them, which is one thing that why I did the networking event, and I love your networking events. Stefany does amazing network. When I say amazing, amazing. Cannot wait for the next one, by the way. But that's the time that we interact with each other and we get to know each other, which I love.
Yeah, because it's really important, like as a vendor in this community, to get to know the other vendors because you want to work with good people. So if something's going down on your day of, for example, your rentals didn't work out, you picked a different rental company than you usually because of a budgetary thing or whatever. It's really important that you have existing relationships with other vendors who can maybe help you pick up the slack.
Yes. And it has happened.
And it's happened. Like
many
it's
times.
absolutely happened. And like a perfect example was the birth of my daughter.
Yeah.
She came 10 weeks early. That is not normal.
Wow.
And so here I am in a hospital bed, like trying not to have a stroke because I have like incredibly crazy high blood pressure. And I'm texting all of the vendors. I'm like, hey guys. So like I got someone to cover for me. I had my business partner at the time. She flew in from New Orleans because she was in New Orleans. She flies in. And I'm texting the DJ, I'm texting the florist, I'm texting the venue, I'm texting the photographer. I was like, guys, you got to take care of her.
It's so important in this business to have people like this because I learned that too back in the days when my dad was in the hospital. My mom and my sister were in Cuba, so they couldn't take care of him.
Yeah.
I had a wedding, and so I had to go to the hospital. And I was like,
what do you do?
What do I do? I didn't know.
And
so thankfully, I reached out to one of my friends who is a photographer, and she filled for me. But after that, I learned that I couldn't just count on that one friend because what if she wasn't available that day? So I became
or she was working her own wedding.
Yeah, like I just couldn't count on the one person.
Yeah.
Love you for filling in for me that day. But I became more social with other people. And then, of course, I grew my team. So now I have a team that I don't have to, I go to them first. And then if they're not available, move on. But very important.
But it's important, too, that if something happens to you and you're sending someone else from your team as you, that all the other vendors know what's going on and can help.
Yep.
So all the other vendors knew that it was my business partner who hadn't been in the weeds of the details.
But they knew she would take care of business.
And they knew she would do it.
Yeah.
But to also protect her from the couple. The couple was furious with me.
Oh my gosh.
It was something I can control. It wasn't, but she was furious with me.
And I understand it's their wedding day, but these are things that are out of your control.
Yeah.
There's not, you're having a baby.
I was and 10 weeks early. She was 2 pounds.
She decided to come into the world a little earlier.
And it was, it was crazy
but
stressful.
But the fact that you took, you're sitting in the hospital trying to have a baby, but you're still figuring it out for them, they should
Yeah.
appreciate that. And
Which they didn't necessarily, at the time, they didn't necessarily appreciate, which is
but later
fine.
they did. I mean, I'm sure they're stressed out. I mean, it's their wedding day. It's your wedding day. I
But
get
all
it.
the other vendors like just stepped up so much that day and just took care of it. And so that's just a perfect example of how having that community surrounding you for the business is so important. You got to find your people.
Definitely find your people.
Just find them within the industry and you'll be good.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Anything else that you want to let, the brides and grooms know for the day of the wedding that, any advice that you might have for them?
Very important. Immediately following your ceremony, take a moment. Like you are walking down the aisle. No one can come follow you yet. Like they can't. So go and like hide in a corner.
For 4 minutes, 5
Like
minutes, whatever.
tell your photographer, tell your planner, tell whoever's there, like directing traffic, to just let you go have a moment, because the getting ready is super stressful and super crazy.
That's a lot of things going on.
And even if you had a first look, you're going to be so like crazy and you're not taking the moments.
That is the one thing about the first look that is nice, because most of the time I do give my couples about 30-minute break in between, because that's when I go set up. And if my video team is there, we go set up. And they have 30 minutes to just be.
But a lot of times
after ceremony is
they're
very
so wound
hard.
up. They're so wound up during that first look.
Yeah.
They can't relax.
No.
They're like, oh my gosh, we got to get there. Like all the things are just kind of like running through their head.
Yeah.
So after the ceremony, that's the important part. And so if you take a minute to just go chill and like let your brain process what just happened, you're going to have so many more like core memories left in your brain. It's psychology. If you don't give your brain a break, it can't have time to process. Which
is a good time. Like for me, and maybe this is something that you're teaching me, because maybe I could tell my brides and grooms or my planner that I'm working with, like take them for 5 minutes, because I have to set up. I use lighting, so off lighting. So I have to set all that up, and that takes me a little bit. And sometimes I've noticed like they come right back and I'm still setting up. There's no need for them to be there.
Yeah.
They can
the
be
rest of the crew. Oh yeah. Just bring them all back.
Yeah, because if not, they
scatter. They scatter. And
yeah,
it's like,
to find them, oh my Lord. I'm like,
it's herding cats at that point. But
so
you as
they
a couple,
cannot, and that's such a great idea.
you as a couple should really just take a moment. And then the other thing is I'm a big visualization person. Like I can visualize things in my brain. I know some people can't. Some people can't.
Yeah.
But if you can, I want
see
you
it here. Like I can see
I want
it
you to
here,
visualize like what your day is from your guest's perspective. So your guest arrives. What is their experience? Are they going like confused? Like, where do I go? Where do I sit? Then you should probably have a sign or a person to tell them where to go.
And I have seen that. And they'll ask me, and I'm just like, I'm not sure. I'm just a photographer. I don't know.
So like as a couple, if you can go through your day and say, okay, like where are those going to be those specific pain points? Like as a guest, when you've gone to a wedding, you don't ever know where to go.
Nope.
So you should probably have a sign or a person. And when you sit down, do you have like a QR code to say like what your digital program is going to be, so people know what's happening, or are you just going to let it go? Doesn't matter. At the end of the ceremony, where do people go? Let the officiant know so he can make that announcement. Like kind of like show and go through and say, okay, where could those pain points be as a guest? Because the guest experience is what they remember. That's what they're going to, at the end of the day, like, that wedding was awesome. Why? I was never lost. The food was awesome. The music was on point.
We knew where to go.
Yeah, we knew where to go. So really, if you can visualize it, do that. And if you can't, do that with your planner. Your planner is going to be a visual person.
Planner, like I've said, is very important if you're planning a wedding. I mean, they direct through the whole day, and
even if it's
flawless.
just like a month of coordinator, because day of doesn't exist. I will state that for the record. It doesn't exist. You can't start your job and know what you're doing the first day. Neither can a planner. So it's going to start a month out. Yeah. And so work with them during that month.
But people say day of. Is it such a thing? But it's just something that you don't recommend.
So when someone says day of, it doesn't mean day of. It means because they're doing all of that work weeks ahead of your wedding day to figure out like who's your vendor.
Yeah.
What, I'm going to show up on the first day, like on your wedding day, be like, so who's your photographer? Like, no, you can't. You physically can't do it. So you can market it as a day of, because that makes sense to a couple, but it's truly a month of thing. So during that time with that planner.
So planner, stop saying day of and just say month of. Just say month of, Because I'm thinking day of, like they show up that day. I don't know. I'm not a planner. So that makes sense.
So yeah, so as a couple, make sure you talk with your planner, even if they're a month of, and say, hey, like, where are my pain points? Where is that going to be for that guest experience?
So I'm going to flip it around as far as like vendors, like myself, to work with different planners in the area. How do you suggest for us to try to be one of their recommended vendors? Like what are things that attracted you to other vendors that you said, oh, I really like this person, I want to work with her?
For me, it was like vendors who we didn't butt heads. So a lot of times, especially photographer, videographers, you don't have a planner to help you make your timeline.
Right.
And that you have to make your own timeline.
We make our own
which is
timeline.
totally fine.
Yep.
So as a planner for myself, if I worked with a photographer who was like, here's my time, Steph, just put it into your timeline. Or if I'm like, hey, based on my master timeline of everybody's timelines, this is going to be kind of needs to be tweaked a little bit. Mm-hmm. If the photographer was like, cool, chill, I'm good,
I'll make it work.
Like as long as there's open communication. I had a lot of photographers in particular who were like, no, my timeline's the timeline. I was like, but there's so many other pieces to this.
It's like a puzzle.
It's a puzzle. And so
together.
The planner's job is to kind of fit it all together and make sure that everyone does what they need to do so that this wedding comes out beautifully. Mm-hmm. That's like the master job. And photography and videography is so important to that. And so for me as a planner, when that was the time, I wanted to make sure that we got along and that there wasn't like an ego thing. Like for me, there was never an ego. I have like
I don't
no
have
ego.
an ego thing. And I know I've heard of that with other photographers, videographers, they're like set like that. And you know, you're there to make the day smooth.
And the
so
planner's
why not
your
work?
friend.
Yeah, I would say like work with your planner because then everybody gets along, everything's great. If not, you know, we have attitudes and whatever behind the scenes that maybe the couple don't see, but I'm like, I want to strangle her.
Yeah. But same with like DJs and musicians.
Yeah.
Like a lot of times they get stuck with the timeline for the reception. And those poor people, you know, they're trying to, without a planner, all of a sudden they're trying to take care of what the kitchen's doing and what the food's doing and this is not the other. Planners, make sure that your DJs and your musicians know the timeline.
Yes, that's important.
You know, because it's going to drive them crazy. And so there are some wonderful, wonderful DJs in town who are very well versed in timelines and understand how the day should flow and how it would flow with a planner. But that's kind of like, for those types of things, again, it's like the ego thing. The DJ isn't saying like, well, it's my show now. Sure, but there's also dinner and drinks and speeches and all this other stuff.
And you still have to communicate with us.
Correct. And then not start the bouquet toss while the photographer's eating.
That's happened.
You know, and that stuff happens all the time. And so that's like, as a planner, that's part of my job. So for another vendor to work with a planner, just make sure that you let the planner know all of your necessities and all of your things that you need, but then let them know, like, I'm flexible. Like, I can roll with the punches. You want me to eat before the couple eats? Cool. Do you want me to eat later? Cool. I'll eat a snack.
Speaking of eating, so, you know, I've been to weddings where, I mean, I hate when they give us food at the end of one.
I know.
So, like, I just hope that in West Palm Beach, I know the Keys is very good about feeding us literally right when the couple is eating, because that's the best time for us, where other venues wait till everybody's done eating and then the photographers eat, which is not cool. Because now we're rushing to try to go back. You know, it's just like a thing. So venues
feed your people.
feed us when the bride and groom are eating. I don't see the difference of, you know, but that's just me. Maybe there's a reason. I have no idea. Maybe I'll bring somebody in here and they can explain that to me.
Hopefully,
because I don't understand it.
And it depends on the venue. I think it's the way the venue operates and how the cook is doing, like what the cooks are doing in the kitchen. But I agree. I think vendors should eat at the beginning. Because
so as a planner, I would suggest, you know, just speaking, I'm not a planner, but I would suggest to maybe specify that.
I do. And as a planner, that's what I would do. I would always let the venue know, like, hey, because of this, that, and the other thing in the timeline, can we feed them first? Like, to have those vendor meals set first. And I would send them a list of like, we need 7 vendor meals. Here's where they're going to eat. Tell me where they should sit and go from there.
Yeah.
So that's kind of, as a planner, you should also hopefully do that with your venues.
Yes, definitely. Well, you know, I think we've hit a lot of amazing, you know,
all the
topics.
information.
Yeah. And, you know, I really enjoyed having you here today. And I appreciate all your tips. And we're so excited about the show. So please come see us if you're getting married.
Yes. So it's Love Under the Palms on September 27th at the Aloft in Delray Beach from 2 to 5 p.m. with now the surprise after party starting at 5 p.m. I don't know the end time, but you can go to loveunderthepalms.com, and that's going to give you all the information on the vendors, including Yolanda, and how to get tickets through Eventbrite.
So everybody, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.